The tongue is one of the most important muscles if you have sleep apnea. And if you ignore this, this is why you may stay stuck on a CPAP, which is basically just going to blow your tongue out of the way. You may be stuck on a mouth guard, which is just going to jam your jaw in a way so your tongue doesn't fall back, or really any other contraption or surgery. But the real truth is, you don't have to rely on those things if you just get your tongue into the proper position and you give it the proper strength and the proper tone. And best of all, I'm going to show you today how you do not need a long, drawn out 10, 20-minute routine where you're going like this all over the place. There's a few very concentrated exercises that will provide you a huge amount of benefit so that you're breathing better at night. That means less snoring, less waking up. You can get deeper quality sleep so that when you wake up, you don't have a dry mouth, you don't have a headache, you're not groggy, and instead you're just normal. You just wake up, feel refreshed and recharged just like you should. So we're going to review if this even works in the first place, because it's always important to know that, and then how are we going to do this with a live demo here. And just for your advantage, if you have a spoon, or if you don't have a spoon, make sure you acquire a spoon, because that's going to be part of what we're doing. So first and foremost, why the heck is the tongue even important in the first place? Well, let's zoom in on this image here. It's pretty simple and straightforward. And this even is why all sleep apnea has one common core mechanism, which is there is a closure in the airway around this area where all your different muscles meet. That's the back of the throat, your tongue, and your soft palate. This will be the area of obstruction. It's not up here if you have a deviated septum. Even if you have that, you still have the obstruction down here. Or let's say you have a recessed jaw. Guess what? The obstruction is still going to be right here. Let's say you have enlarged adenoids. Guess what? The obstruction is still going to be right here. Okay? It's very important to know, yes, there's many different factors that will predispose someone to sleep apnea, but at the end of the day, there is one common core mechanism for all of them. For obstructive, that is, not talking about central. And just to make this an easy diagram, it's just there's a fast inhale that takes advantage of weaker muscles like your tongue, your soft palate, back of the throat, pulls that in just like a vacuum, that stronger inhale, and then that's going to lead to your airway being blocked. If you're new here, you may be asking, why the heck is there a fast inhale? That's because there is some sort of narrowing that goes on. Then your body's trying to breathe through a straw. It has to breathe faster to get the same amount of air. Then you're stuck in this neural pattern of breathing too fast. Then that makes you collapse your airway even more. That's why part of the solution is the slower inhale, and we'll talk about that later. But the other part is making the tissues, these muscles, more resilient so they're not getting pulled in as much. You want to be able to approach it from both sides to get the most rapid turnaround. Simple as that. Now, that all sounds hunky-dory, but in reality, what does that actually mean? Let's quickly review what the research literature says. Study out of Canada found that 1 week of tongue training was associated with big decreases in the severity of sleep apnea. It went from 21 to 16, and then from 32 to 17, basically. That's a huge reduction just for a small amount of time doing tongue training. So very valid on how this works. And then another study found very similar results of where they were able to cut the severity of sleep apnea basically in half from 25 to 15. That's going to have big payoffs and allow for better and better sleep. Now, not every study reflects this. Now, there is some research that shows tongue training doesn't really do anything. So what are you left to think? Things are conflicting. But this is a very important time where I remind you your individual needs, your N equals 1, if you will. That's a popular way of saying that because N refers to sample size in a study, like N equals 3,000, means there are 3,000 people in that study. But guess what? All 3,000 of those people and the average of the results may not apply to you. That's because you are your own individual case. You are that N equals 1. Personalized approaches to health, that's what allows for the biggest changes. You want to be able to use bigger data to see trends and then see if it works for yourself when you're doing it by yourself. Otherwise, say you're working with us, that's what we're doing for you, deciding, okay, based on this, we should be doing that, so on and so forth. When we look at the different aspects of your muscles and how they can help you reduce snoring and reduce apnea, there's a lot of different factors. We're just talking about one, like your tongue posture. So there's a whole field called myofunctional therapy. That is something we'll talk about later, but just know There's many different factors. Tongue posture may be a big factor for you, or it may not. But either way, the only way you know is either doing it by yourself or me telling you, because I'm able to have that interface with you. So there's a lot of different things that are involved there. So it works for some people. That's great to know. And what are we going to do? Because I know there's videos out there where it's like 30 minutes of like, like that. Okay, that's cool. That's a good widespread. But I want to be able to upgrade this for you because there's a lot to do in your life. There's a lot to do for your health. And the thing is, it is really frustrating if you did 20 minutes of tongue exercises per day and you didn't see any benefit and you did that for like 2 months and was like, well, there goes 2 months. So I want to be able to give you a nice and efficient way to be able to improve your tongue posture so that you can be able to sleep better at night. So this will be our live demo. Get your spoon. This episode is sponsored by Big Spoon, stainless steel from, I don't know where from, but nonetheless, it's going to be our assistance here because these exercises have no resistance and we can get more out of the exercise by adding some resistance. And we're going to train some of the core movement patterns of your tongue because the whole idea of a tongue going back is that it is in this position where it is getting pulled down and back, down and back. So what's the opposite of down and back? We want to go up and out. That's what we're training to keep the airway open. So there's a lot of different ways to do that. Let's go ahead and do this together. So number one is going to be out. This is also known as tongue protrusion, where you're just sticking your tongue straight out. And you're going to use your spoon as this resistance, not to the movement itself, but at the end points. Let me demonstrate. I'm going to do this way. See me here? So stick my tongue out. And then I'm going to press with the spoon against it and really push them together. So I'm going to demonstrate here. Effectively, here's your tongue. And you're going to actually point it upwards a little bit. So here we go. Embarrassing tongue on the internet. And if you do that correctly, that will be hard. It will be difficult. Sometimes if you do it long enough, you'll get a tongue cramp. And you'll do this for 10 reps, and then each rep is 5 seconds, and you can rest about 2 to 3 seconds in between those pulses. So you do out, and then you want to do up. This is tongue elevation, because remember, the whole problem is the tongue being down and back. So we're bringing it forward and up. So up is a little bit harder to demonstrate. I'll do it with my finger first. So this is the tongue. You can use the back of the spoon for this. And you want to raise your tongue up while still inside your mouth and just press down against it with the back of the spoon. So let me demonstrate. So there's not a whole lot of movement. That's the point. It's an isometric exercise to strengthen the posture and tone. Because the whole idea is to get that tone so that when you're asleep and you don't have any control over your muscles, they're going to revert to where they are the strongest, which is what we're strengthening with the spoon. Now the next one requires a little bit more explanation because I told you that the whole problem is down and back. Now, there's a way you can depress your tongue so it's resting more just behind the front row of your bottom teeth. This is called down. It's really depressed, but we don't need to be anatomically correct. And what you're doing here is, let's say this is your tongue, and you have the spoon here, and you're just trying to keep it in place, and you can add some additional force by pressing down this way on the spoon here. So let me demonstrate. Have it like this. Mm-hmm. Very difficult to talk and do this at the same time. You're just going to hold it like that. Very rarely will you need to press down because this is a somewhat long spoon, and these are actually kind of heavy. And you just hold it down in place. You're going to press your tongue down to keep the spoon up. So that's what that would look like. Now, there's 2 more here, just right and left. The reason for this is if you strengthen the left or right outside, that will help prevent your tongue from flopping left or right, because that will also predispose you to some sort of obstruction here. So it's pretty simple. You're going to start as such, put the spoon to one side, and then twist, and then press. I hope you appreciate my high willingness to just be very silly looking on the internet for you. So you're going to out. Okay, so I'm pressing against the spoon to the right. And I would do that 10 reps for 5 seconds each. Take 5 seconds to rest in between, and then do that 10 times. And then do the same thing, but other side. And that's pretty much it. So that's the whole routine. That should take about 6 to 7 minutes. Do this at least once per day. If you want to be super, super duper A+, you would do it twice per day. That's how long it would be, which is going to be a lot more effective than a routine where you're just kind of flopping your tongue around. We want to add some resistance to it so you get way more benefit. Like I was talking about with benefits, being able to improve your tongue posture and the strength is just one aspect. There's a lot of other facets to things like your lips, nasal breathing, swallowing power, and all of that. And that's why in the next episode, I'm going to talk about myofunctional therapy for sleep apnea. And once again, my goal is to not overwhelm you and hit you with the book, but to give you simple, actionable things that you can use today for better sleep tonight. So if that video is available, go ahead and click. If it's not, make sure you go ahead and subscribe so you do not miss a beat. Now, if you want a personalized and fast path out of sleep apnea once and for all, you already know where that is. That's at ochnow.com/talk, your free evaluation session. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you or talk to you soon.